All right, there you have it, the man of the hour, President Trump hitting the stage there in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Hello, Butler, and hello to Pennsylvania. We're going to take back the White House, and we're going to take back our country.
There was just an assassination attempt on President Trump's life.
Better get over here quick!
If you're not law enforcement, go!
Just trying to kill President Trump. I think we're going to get a paramedic.
The shooter confirmed dead. President Trump releasing a statement that he is fine.
Let me get my shoes.
Hold on, your head is bloody.
Goosebumps. Goosebumps.
Hard to believe it's already been a year.
I can't believe it. I know. And we know exactly where we were at that very moment. So does the world. I still have people coming up to me to this very day. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Newsmax special, Butler at 1. I'm Lidia Curanaj.
And I'm Bob Brooks. We all remember where we were, as we were just saying, when those near-fatal shots rang out, missing President Trump by just millimeters. I was just yards away reporting on the Butler, PA rally when we heard those distinctive pops. They were pops, according to some, sound like fireworks. And then the world held its breath as President Trump dropped to the ground.
If you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
That pivotal moment. It shook the nation. It shook the world. President Trump then, look at that. He then instinctively pumped his fist up. Fight, fight, fight. And, you know, he's been fighting for you. He's been fighting for this country, for the world, against evil forces determined to take him out. I was hosting the rally that night, sitting at the anchor desk. I remember yelling to my producer, Nick, and Celia, and I said, my God, I think the president has just been shot.
I can only imagine what it was like in here. I was there on the ground with all the other reporters. I took the assignment initially, Lydia. I'm from that area, Western Pennsylvania. I grew up about an hour away. I wanted to go there. I wanted to talk about the issues facing my home area. But within seconds, those shots ringing out, Lydia and I, we were back on air. We started trying to make sense and deliver what was going on.
Shots were fired there in Butler, Pennsylvania. President Trump taken quickly off the stage there. The crowd is still there. Just quite the shocking moments. He had only started speaking for a couple of minutes when the shots rang out. Security detail came, and you can see his motorcade whisking him away.
He was speaking like we were all hearing. The Trump rally was underway. I was sitting down and you heard the first shot fired. It kind of sounded like a firework. Didn't sound like that high-powered of a gun. Then the rest came, and the next thing you knew, President Trump was down.
Bring back some memories, huh?
It really does. And I remember when I was reporting that he had been shot, we received a lot of criticism. I believe Newsmax was one of the first, if not the first, to report that he had been shot, because initially people were saying that, no, he wasn't shot, this, that. And then we saw the blood and the pumping of the fist. And thank God President Trump was okay there. It's just incredible, the resiliency that this man has to just pump up that fist and say, fight, fight, fight. I am not going to give up.
That moment specifically on the meteorizer, Lydia, that I don't say this lightly. It was kind of like an out-of-body experience, because after the first couple shots rang out, we realized there was a shooter there. I kind of hit the deck. I found some camera equipment to try and get behind, duck behind. I'll admit it, behind some of the camera guys who did not stop rolling. Kudos to them for doing that. And I didn't know where he was when
Weren't you afraid that?
I thought multiple shooters. There could have been. You didn't know.
It could have been explosive devices.
Could have been. And when I first popped up, I didn't know that he was behind that little metal barrier. I said, well, where's the president? Where's the president? Is he dead? Is he dead? And everyone's like, we don't know. We don't know. And then he pops up and gives the fist pump. When he did that, what was it like here in the studio?
A sigh of relief. A sigh of relief that he would be okay. Thank God, because you saw that it was right at his head. It was at his head, and it just millimeters. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. By the grace of God, by the hands of God, he was saved that day.
So let's do this. Let's talk more about the would-be killer. That is a 20-year-old from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, Thomas Matthew Crooks. You all know who he is by now. That 20-year-old lived nearby, about an hour away. Authorities believe he acted alone. So many questions, though. Many of them, they still remain.
So the shooter lives right down the street from you. How you feeling?
It's actually pretty surprising. I actually moved here 2 months ago to be a part of a church north of town called Revival Today, and I love it, but I moved here 2 months ago, and I had no idea that a shooter would be right down the street from me. It's pretty surprising, actually. I was pulling in, and I asked what was going on. They said, shooter lives right down the road.
And it turns out he would be a killer. We'd find out he would murder Corey Comparator, the
he was a
firefighter
star
from Butler.
student, straight-A student, never any issues, but, you know, he was a kind of a lone wolf there. It's just, and then just the day before, that Pakistani national, that he was arrested as well. So you don't know, was it connected, was it not? The investigation is ongoing, but right now authorities think he did it on his own.
Did it on his own. It's so hard to fathom. I filled in at the 8 p.m. on Friday, just jogging through all the events. This 20-year-old was spotted 62 minutes before he took the shots by law enforcement. They knew he was there. They had eyes on him, yet he still got those shots off.
He certainly did, and he was there for at least 25 minutes, alerting federal, people, spectators were alerting federal agents, trying to tell them that he was there, and they didn't do anything about it. We now welcome House Speaker Mike Johnson to share his thoughts on the events of that day and the questions, so many questions that are still unanswered. Speaker Johnson, thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Glad to be with you.
So, we all remember where we were that moment that those shots rang out and the world held its breath. We wondered, oh my God, what just happened? Is the president okay? And then he pumped up his fist, fight, fight, fight. And then you tweeted the morning after that God protected President Trump that day. I mean, when you think about it, milliseconds, millimeters determined life and death for President Trump that day. So how else can you explain it but God, right? Right, Speaker?
Well, that's right. Look, there's no political leader in American history who has endured so many relentless attacks, even attacks upon his life, and remained so strong and resilient. And it's very clear, I mean, on two occasions, failed assassination attempts. His life miraculously spared on the world stage where everyone can see it. The president called me early this morning and we reflected upon this, about a half-hour conversation. We talked about the moment I was with him right after the second assassination attempt, just 64 days after the Butler, Pennsylvania tragedy, where they caught the gunman with the muzzle pointed out of the bushes on the golf course in Florida. And I sat with him, my wife Kelly and I sat with him for 2 hours and 45 minutes right after that event while they were trying to clear the security perimeter around Mar-a-Lago. And we just talked about this, how clearly God had saved his life, spared his life for a purpose. And he acknowledges that. He talks about it openly now. And he understands the weight of history upon him, the legacy that he will leave and the responsibility that he's been given to help save the country. And it's a very serious thing and a profound thing to be a part of.
Save the country, save the world. And you tweeted a short time ago that picture that you took with the president just a short time after he was almost killed by another would-be assassin in Florida. So it's just remarkable, just the resiliency that this man has. Now, Chairman Rand Paul just released his final report detailing Secret Service failures. He cites the shooter being reported to the Secret Service at least 25 minutes earlier, and that the Secret Service under then Director Kimberly Cheadle falsely testified to Congress that she never denied Trump's team multiple requests for additional assets and staff to protect Trump. And then just the day before, Trump was almost assassinated. This very day, a year ago, an Iranian operative was arrested. He was charged with trying to hire assassins to kill Trump. We also learned that the Secret Service officials were aware of a classified threat 10 days earlier, but didn't tell agents on the ground. So, Speaker, what do you say to Americans that almost believe that this was purposely done, that this wasn't just negligence, that they didn't care if, God forbid, something did happen to President Trump? What do you say to those people?
Well, the errors that took place to allow for this tragedy were just almost unbelievable. We put together a House task force, a bipartisan task force that worked on this very thing, investigating it on the House side. They released their report many months ago. They found an egregious list of errors, and they made over 30 recommendations to ensure that those were addressed. Now, we do have leadership at the Secret Service, new leadership now. We have, hand-selected by President Trump. We have some of the most patriotic, faithful people who serve in that agency, but their job is critically important. They have to make sure that these lapses never occur again. And we're watching that with very careful oversight from the House and Senate side, both. And we have to, we've got to make sure that there's accountability for the things that happen.
There have been extensive investigations by Kash Patels, by Dan Bongino, that this would-be assassin, this killer, because he did kill someone that day, Corey Comparatori, that there were no ties to Iranian operatives, because of course that was a concern. He was also involved with encrypted services overseas, a 20-year-old. So a lot of people, so many questions still unanswered. A lot of people wonder, how could it be that he acted alone? How could it be that he was on that rooftop, 25 minutes and nobody did anything? What do you say to people that are concerned that, the investigation hasn't gone far enough? This guy had to have had ties to someone else.
Well, the investigation is now in the hands of the FBI and the DOJ, and the House and Senate have done everything we possibly can to investigate it. We've turned over that information. A lot of that, I think the people involved were forthcoming, but there are as many questions as there are answers. And, the same is true for the second event, the one that happened just 64 days later, it's September 15th of the same year, an election year, when the guy was shot at by Secret Service, chased and apprehended. He's awaiting trial now. There's some very dangerous people in our society, and the rhetoric from a lot of politicians these days tends to inspire action by some of these crazy people, and we need to turn that rhetoric down, turn down the heat, get to the facts, and make sure that we're protecting our president and other elected officials to the best of our ability. I mean, there's always more to do, and Congress is very serious about this, the responsibility that we have to ensure that that happens and will continue in that quest.
Speaker Johnson, what do you have to say to Democrat leaders out there that they are kind of almost amplifying this hateful rhetoric? We're seeing ICE agents being attacked. We're seeing the rhetoric against President Trump being amplified as well. What do you say to them? Don't they have a responsibility to kind of turn down the volume? Because at the end of the day, this is about preserving America. This is what's best for this nation, for this country, and we should all be supporting our president.
Yeah, I think you summarized that well, and I call upon them publicly and privately on a daily basis to do just that. Especially elected officials in this country, you have an extra duty, an extra responsibility to dial down the rhetoric, to make sure that this enhanced threat environment that we live in is improved. And when you go out and you encourage people not just to protest, but they use vile language like blood in the streets now. They're encouraging their supporters, and some of these are, like I said, just crazy people. And they will do crazy things if they feel empowered to do it. They're encouraging them to go and assault ICE officers and impede their work and dox them online and threaten them. Among other officials. It's outrageous. So we've got to continue to call for that. We need to appeal, as Lincoln famously said, to our better angels. We're better than that. America is the greatest nation in the history of the world. We are that for a reason. But our goodness is the secret to our greatness, as has always been acknowledged in our history. And it's an important time to remember that as we just celebrated our 249th birthday of this great republic.
Speaker, real quick, before I let you go, they're telling me to wrap, but I have to ask you, do you think President Trump, that God saved his life to save not just this country, but the world? Because if not for President Trump, we wouldn't be seeing peace in the Middle East, peace possibly in Ukraine very soon. We could have seen a World War III. Because of if it were not for him and him taking out Iranian nuclear capabilities. Do you think God saved President Trump in order to save the world?
Look, I believe in the truth of Scripture, and that is that God is the one that raises up those in authority, and we're encouraged to pray for them all. President Trump is a singular figure in American history and in modern history, and his peace through strength ethos and that principle and that strength, resilience, is what is accomplishing all these things. And we're going to continue to be a partner with him in that. And we pray for his safety, and as well as all those who serve us, because that's our responsibility to do that. Speaker Johnson, thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Thank you.
Joining us now for more on this, the senator from Wisconsin, Senator Ron Johnson. Senator, it's a pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me on.
So I understand you co-authored the bipartisan Senate Homeland Security Committee report, but you're not happy with a lot of aspects of what's going on with trying to get information. You're now going to subpoena the FBI about this to get that information. Talk about it.
Well, first of all, what we know, what we released in our report was primarily obtained within a week by my investigators talking to people on the ground who at that point in time were willing to share information. But within a week or two, everybody started climbing up. We had to go through the Secret Service to just even get interviews with a few, maybe a dozen or two Secret Service personnel that are on the ground, some of the key people we've never been able to talk to. My assumption, quite honestly, was once President Trump won, once his administration got in office, they would have every incentive to open up that process, investigate it themselves, and be transparent with the American public. And honestly, I thought that was probably what was happening. It's amazing how much time goes by when you're working on the one big beautiful bill and all the other priorities, and all of a sudden here we are, 1 year anniversary, and the American people still don't have all these answers. Who is Thomas Crooks? We did subpoena the Pennsylvania State Patrol. They weren't being forthcoming. They've got body cam video. They've got all kinds of things. So what I'm doing, I view this not as an adversarial subpoena, but as a friendly subpoena to prompt transparency. If the FBI, if they've done an investigation, it's time for them to release it to the American public. If not, turn over the records that we've literally been seeking for a year now.
So, Senator, I want transparency for the American people, and I know that's what you want too. So just clarify for me here. You're saying that you've reached out to the FBI, Pennsylvania State Police. You're looking for access to certain individuals, and a year's time from now, they're still denying you access to those very people.
Correct. I mean, very early on, the FBI had interviewed hundreds of people. Again, we were given access. I mean, the first week we interviewed people because they talked freely, but then everybody was, told to not basically tell us anything, the agency secrecy. But the FBI interviewed people. They have what they call 302s. They have notes on those interviews. We've been requesting those for, close to a year now. We haven't got any. So again, they had access to all these people. They are doing all this investigation. We were pretty well prevented from talking to the individuals that we needed to talk to. And here we are a year later, and the American public just has not been told much at all, other than what we released in our initial report. The Secret Service issued some reports as well, but it's pretty meager in terms of the information that they have gathered.
It really is. And this Crooks character, Senator, I'm from that area. I went to his house the day after it happened. I was at the rally talking about the issues facing Western Pennsylvania because I'm from around out there. My first thought the next day was, how in the world this 20-year-old outsmarted the Secret Service, the FBI, the state police, and everyone else? It's unbelievable here. So if they don't comply with the subpoenas, what will you do next if they don't?
Well, first of all, I expect they will. Again, I view this as a friendly subpoena. I've had a friendly subpoena to, for example, Bobby Kennedy, HHS. He wants radical transparency, but these agencies, people within these agencies, sometimes partisan actors, are just frustrating every attempt to obtain information. So this isn't just unique to the FBI and Department of Justice. Part of the problem the Department of Justice has is they had to terminate, what I've heard, a couple hundred partisan lawyers. They're having a hard time replacing those people because of lawfare. If you're a lawyer and you go to work for the Trump administration, your career just might be destroyed by Democrats and those that are engaged in lawfare. So
we'll try to.
This is very difficult. This is not easy. Deep, delving into the deep state. They do not give up their secrets easily.
Senator Ron Johnson from the great state of Wisconsin, sir, thanks for coming on, especially today. I know you're busy, but it's important we talk about this and continue that conversation. Good to see you.
Have a good day.
So many unanswered questions. We have to ask, how could this have happened?
Hard to believe. So many questions remain on how the killer got so close to President Trump, especially Lidia, after all the onlookers saw him there over an hour beforehand. Why didn't anyone get a better alert? Why didn't agents just delay Trump from going on stage? All valid questions. We're going to talk about it.
And Secret Service officials were aware of a classified threat before the assassination attempt. So why didn't anyone tell the agents actually guarding Trump? We'll discuss that and more. Exactly 1 year later, we now know 6 Secret Service personnel were suspended over the massive catastrophe that took place that day in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, they made one questionable move after another, forcing Congressman Mike Kelly to easily explain maybe what should have happened.
They kept losing sight of him. I would have said, and I have no background in law enforcement, keep the president back until we clear the area. That's the part that doesn't make sense because they failed from the first thing, from the picking of the site, preparing the site, to the coordination of the site, to the ability to communicate. At every step of the way, they failed. And the question is, why didn't you just say, hold up, just hold up. Don't let him come out. If that happens, Corey Compatore is still alive today?
Let's talk more about the ongoing investigation. We're going to bring in former Secret Service agent and author of Terrorists on Our Border and in Our Country, Charles Marino. We also are joined by former Washington Post reporter who examines the Secret Service failures and author of The First Family Detail, Ron Kessler. Good to see you both. Charles, I'm going to start with you. I also want to make note that the Senate committee investigating this found that they denied the Secret Service or left unfilled at least 10 requests from the Trump campaign for additional resources to protect him. And then you lay out the fact that Thomas Crooks was spotted over an hour before he took the shots as a suspicious person. This is why people are having a hard time with getting over this and just kind of believing what the investigation shows right now.
Yeah, and add to that the overall lack of transparency, and people are left to their own devices to come up with the conclusions of what they thought happened. Look, this was an operational failure by the Secret Service and Butler, but it also pointed to a leadership failure, and that was politics. You had a Biden appointee at the Secret Service, Kim Cheadle, bought fully into DEI policies, lowering standards for the Secret Service, ignoring the fact that there was high turnover in the agency, a burned out workforce, lack of training that the agents were getting. And then there was a lack of overall quality control for the product that was being put forth in protection on the ground in places like Butler, despite all of the intelligence that the agency was receiving, specifically out of Iran, about the will or the desire to take out the president of the United States. The resources from the Secret Service did not match the threat level, and people need to be held accountable for that all the way up to the top.
You know, Ron, we also know that this 20-year-old, he also had homemade explosives. He was using encrypted platforms that were not based in the United States. There were a lot of warning signs that led up to that fateful moment. How could he not have been caught beforehand?
I don't think those clues are enough to focus on him. The real problem is this corrupt culture within the Secret Service. When the deputy director of the Secret Service announced these resignations and people being put on leave, he said, we're focusing on the root cause of what caused all this. He didn't say what that was, but I'll tell you the answer after writing 2 books on the FBI, breaking the story of agents hiring prostitutes, and actually interviewing close to 100 either current or former agents, including Secret Service directors. The answer is this motto that they have, which is, we make do with less. They would actually proudly say, we make do with less, which is a recipe for mediocrity, as well as cover-ups, retaliating against agents who point out deficiencies, just a really, really corrupt culture where agents are afraid to point out deficiencies. And that's the answer to what happened here. And it's not just the most recent director. It's one director after another who lie to Congress, who lie to the public. Julia Pearson, appointed by Obama, lied about the penetration of the White House by Gonzalez, said he was not armed, that he did not penetrate all the way. Total lies. Same with her successor, Clancy, lied about the same issue. And then most recently, following in the same tradition, Kimberly Cheadle, the director who was in charge when this happened, claimed that the reason they didn't put agents on the sloping roof overlooking Trump was it was too sloping. Well, that was a lie, first of all. And secondly, it wasn't too sloping. They had other agents on nearby roofs that were much steeper. So just imagine, if you're in an organization, especially a law enforcement agency, where the people in charge lie right and left, where you're afraid to point out problems, and this is going to happen.
And then that is what happened.
That,
it led to a catastrophe, and they were kind of asking for it, Ron. I think that's the point you're making here.
Yeah, and then, of course, a lot of talk about DEI playing a role in this, but we know that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are trying to reform the FBI as best they can. Ron Kessler, Charles Marino, thank you both so much for joining us.
I'd like to share one anecdote with you about Trump. I was sitting with him at Mar-a-Lago overlooking the main pool, and I asked him, how do you like being protected by Secret Service agents? And he said, it's great. I'll be playing golf and there'll be 20 agents all around me. And if I miss a shot, they don't see it.
Wow. All right. Ron and Charles, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Charles Marino's book on terrorists on the border and in our country is available everywhere books are sold, or get this book with a free offer. It's a $30 value. Call or go online and check it out.
Okay, the unnecessary tragedy, as we have been discussing, the failures that's piling up from the Secret Service to the FBI, from technology and communication to simple common sense. That's really the big one, everybody. How did a 20-year-old kid get that close to assassinating the 45th president at that time?
Plus, we'll hear from the paramedic who treated the president and saw his resilience firsthand. That's next. Although Trump's life was spared that day, one hero lost his life protecting his family that very hot July 13th day.
It was this guy, Corey Comparator, local firefighter, lost his life. Our country indebted to him and his family. He was shielding his own from gunfire, and we here at Newsmax are working hard to seek the answers that you want to hear.
This month's edition of Newsmax magazine dives further into everything that happened 1 year ago today. Butler at 1. What really happened? We're now thrilled to be joined by executive editor of Newsmax Media, Ken Chandler, along with the managing editor of Newsmax Media, David Patten. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Ken, tell us, what has your team uncovered about that day?
Well, our cover story, Lidia, it's a powerful minute-by-minute account of the attempt on President Trump's life and the chilling aftermath. And, it's a story every American needs to read because the lapses in the security, the role of the FBI intelligence reports that were ignored, the evidence that the Secret Service had been warned of a potential shooter, the eyewitness accounts of the would-be assassin visibly preparing his weapon. We lay this out in detail in the magazine. And the thing is, after a full year, we still don't know much more about the event than we did on the actual day itself. And the American public deserves answers. And the questions are laid out in this story. And we show you actually minute by minute everything that happened at that rally and everything that went wrong.
David, let me ask you and expand on that. Why don't we know more at this point? It's been over a year. Then also talk about Ryan Ruth, the other guy, the would-be assassin in Palm Beach, Florida.
So Thomas Matthew Crooks is a cipher, so unlike the other members of his generation, our generation even. There's extensive social media logs. There's every manner of trail that would tell us where this person was coming from. What was his motive? Why did he do it? We either do not know those answers, or the FBI does know and isn't releasing the information. Keep in mind, they conducted over 1,000 witness interviews. And do you know how many have fallen into the hands, been handed over to Congress, the congressional investigators? 81. And so until we start to get some answers, we may not know what actually motivated him. And by the way, he was a registered Republican, Crooks was. Now, as far as the other individual, Ruth, what we do know is that he was radicalized and probably had a political motive.
Ken, we have about 30 seconds. A day before Trump was almost assassinated, Asif Merchant was arrested because he was trying to hire an assassin to kill President Trump, and the FBI is still looking to see whether or not Crooks had a link to Iran because, you know, they want to retaliate against Trump for taking out Soleimani. Yes. So what have you found out there?
So here's the crazy thing. Number one, members of the president's protective detail were never informed, the advance team, that what you just told us regarding those arrests and that intelligence was never provided to them. Mind-boggling, but most significant of all, the immediate protective detail of the president was never informed that there was some person out there with a rangefinder walking around in the crowd, and that had been detected well over an hour before the shooting.
Yeah, 62 minutes. He was in the secure zone with the rangefinder.
I can't.
Correct.
I know.
It's unbelievable.
We have to leave it right there, gentlemen. It's still, I don't know. Ken Chandler, David Patten, thank you both.
Thank you.
All right, today marks 1 year since the attempted assassination of President Trump at Butler, Pennsylvania. It was a critical event for Trump, as well as the country and the world. And now Newsmax magazine is out with a special report, also titled Butler at 1. It details not only the shocking facts about what happened, but what we still don't know. A bullet truly came just millimeters from killing the president that day. So what really happened? Why was the entire event mishandled by the Secret Service? Why was the FBI's investigation criticized? And why a year later do we still know so little about the shooter? You need to read Newsmax's investigative report, Butler at 1. You'll also get Newsmax magazine now with over 700,000 monthly readers. Get it free with our special offer, plus a free copy of Trump's Greatest Speeches book, another great gift. Go online today and check it out. Did he act alone?
What do we know more about the 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks, the kid who tried to assassinate the former president, and the blunders that almost let him succeed? There are plenty to continue talking about.
We'll take a look at how the assassination attempt not only changed Trump, but also it altered his road back to the White House. Might have solidified it for him.
A lot of people say it did. I believe so, just as well. Stick with us. Okay, welcome back in. Hard to believe it's almost been a year since President Trump was almost killed in that field in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Crime correspondent Jason Mattera explains a few details we do know about one of the biggest blunders in the last few decades.
No manifesto, no confession, just a dead gunman and a scattered trail of clues. Investigators say Thomas Crooks spent months in the shadows, hiding behind fake names and encrypted platforms. And somehow this 20-year-old engineering student fooled everyone around him. His family told authorities they saw his mental health slipping. But friends, teachers, co-workers, they didn't see a thing. Many described Crooks as sharp, responsible, even gifted. But behind closed doors, Crooks was changing from a low-profile student disillusioned with political division to a bomb-obsessed would-be assassin. Federal agents say he rigged IEDs in his bedroom, stashed more in his car, and was carrying a remote transmitter when a Secret Service sniper took him out. At his home, agents found what appeared to be a booby trap, ammunition cans with wires sticking out, forcing a bomb squad to evacuate the scene. They also discovered nitromethane in his closet, a volatile compound commonly found in improvised explosives. Politically, Crooks was all over the map. He donated to a Democrat PAC after Biden's inauguration. They registered as a Republican. And while a congressional task force flagged major security failures, they reportedly got access to only 81 of the FBI's 1,000 interviews, leaving lawmakers and families like Corey comparators frustrated by what they see as a lack of transparency surrounding an event this serious.
Here we are a year later, and we still don't know anything more than we knew then.
Lidia, Bob, the FBI insists there's no cover-up, there's no smoking gun, and that's coming from Dan Bongino. So what we're left with is a family that saw some warning signs, friends who saw none, and an investigation that has yet to reveal an answer to the biggest question. Why? Back to you.
Okay, that was our Jason Mattera. Coming up, it was a moment that defined President Trump's return to the White House. Some say, Lidia, what happened in Butler probably put President Trump back in the presidency.
It certainly did, and how a botched effort to keep Trump safe showed his true resiliency. Next. Many Americans say what happened that day was divine intervention. Donald Trump told people to fight, fight, fight after an assassin's bullet pierced his ear right there.
So he not only walked away lucky to be alive, but it also may have changed his path back to the White House. According to some, we're talking about polling. Let's discuss that with John McLaughlin, pollster with McLaughlin and Associates. He's also a pollster for the Trump 2024 campaign. When it happened, John, good to see you today on such an important day. Talk about immediately after the fact, some of the numbers that was coming in from the polling and how things maybe changed a little bit, in your opinion.
Well, I think it galvanized our support. No, prior to this, no way was Donald Trump going to lose. He was going to will the election. And he was on a mission, in his last campaign, because he thought the 2020 race was rigged against us. They tried to, legal prosecutions, they tried to take away his wealth, they tried to knock him off the ballot, they tried to put him in jail. And this was the final straw. That failed assassination attempt, I mean, it was basically through the intervention of, we believe, Almighty God, that Donald Trump was going to be reelected. And he went to the convention, galvanized his support, had a great convention, was so strong in the polls that basically Donald Trump, was going to beat Joe Biden. So a week later, only a week later, Biden drops out, Kamala Harris goes in. Sooner or later, all the media polls were saying, the fake media polls were saying Donald Trump was going to lose right up until Election Day. But that wasn't true. You and Lidia, Bob, you interviewed me repeatedly on Newsmax, and we said Donald Trump was ahead. He was going to win. Donald Trump was going to win the popular vote. That's how strong he became after that assassination attempt, and that's exactly what he did.
John, to your point, CBS News, they had a poll out that said that Kamala Harris was ahead of Trump by 2 points, but then your poll showed that wasn't the case. So how did you get it right and everybody else got it so wrong?
Well, first of all, we were working for Donald Trump. So we had the internal information from the Trump campaign, and those polls, we were screening for likely voters. We had a model built on past turnouts. Those media polls were often skewed with underpolling Republicans, conservatives, and Trump voters, and then they were trying to will the election. Remember when that Iowa poll came out the weekend before the election?
Oh, yeah.
Had Kamala up by like 15 points or something. That ended, well, she was retiring anyways, the pollster there.
Right.
Yeah, unbelievable. John, I remember that conversation I had with you back before the election. Yeah. Your numbers were spot on pretty much the entire time.
He's always right.
Yeah, you do. You got the pulse of it.
Donald Trump did it. He willed the election. And the assassination attempt, that gave him the resolve to get through anything. He basically understood that basically for an act of God, he was going to be the next president. And he was going to win the election.
God saved him for a reason. John McLaughlin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So we all held our breath, and I know you were diving for cover. That day that President Trump, he was rushed to an emergency room.
You thought you were about to say on air that maybe the president was dead.
I still, oh my goodness. And it's where a lot of true character, not just the presidents, but also the emergency personnel, where they showed their bravery as well, because instead of running away from the danger, they run towards it. One of those people, Sally Sherry, she's a Butler paramedic. Sally, you were there that fateful day. You ran to help people. You did not know if there were explosive devices. You didn't know if there were other shooters, if you could have been killed. What made you to continue on that path?
Well, I wasn't even working at the rally that day. I was working.
You were at the hospital, Sherry.
Oh, okay.
Or Sally,
yes.
you were at the hospital for that. Talk about that when President Trump came in. You treated him, and I understand that at top of his mind was his family. That's what he was most worried about.
So she was the one who he spoke with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Tell us, Sally, about that conversation.
He absolutely. I mean, he was more concerned about everybody else at the rally and with his family. I mean, his family was first and foremost. Whenever he got into the ER, he was on the phone with each and every one of them, checking in with them to let them know that he was okay. He kept talking to the Secret Service, checking to make sure that everyone at the rally was okay. And at that time, we didn't have any idea as to what happened to Corey and the other two families. But his concern was not himself.
So did that surprise you that the president was so selfless like that he's kind of a regular guy? I mean, here he missed a bullet missed going into his brain by mere millimeters, and here he is worried about everybody else. And I also think that's what the fight was about too. He wanted to allay everyone else's fears that he was okay and that he was going to continue to fight, and he wanted everyone else to do the same.
Absolutely. And I mean, he showed that throughout the time that we had with him there. Even as he sat there, you know, and things were going on, his tenacity and strength through all of it was pretty amazing to me. And whenever he left our ER that night, you know, we were told not to, you know, go up to him or anything like that as he was leaving. And as he left, he again raised his fist to us and smiled and everything, came over, gave me a hug and a kiss on the forehead, which I will never forget. But it was an amazing evening, you know, even through the sadness and the sorrow and everything, to see, you know, what our country had come to that evening. But I think that was a pretty pivotal point for the country itself to turn around.
He certainly showed some strength, without question. Sally, I want you to tell us real quick, because we're running out of time here. President Trump often talks about feels it, his ear hurting him every now and again. Would that be indicative of an injury like that?
I mean, I can't speak on anything as far as, you know, his injuries or anything like that, but I can't imagine it not bothering him at some point in time throughout the course of, I mean, anyone that were to have an injury, you know, like what he had, it's not going to be something that just goes away and you never feel again.
Yeah, it was pretty extensive there. Sally, Sherry, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, thanks for having me.
It was just 1 year ago today that in America, we witnessed the near-fatal assassination attempt on President Donald Trump at that campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Having been seated just about 30 yards away myself, I can remember vividly the shock and terror that moment evoked in Butler across the nation just as well. Also at the rally that day was national political reporter for the Washington Examiner and author of the new book on it all, Butler, The Untold Story of the Near Assassination of Donald Trump in the Fight for America's Heartland, Salena Zito. Salena, thank you so much for coming on such a big day. And I understand that you, more so maybe than anybody, you have incredible access to President Trump. We also want to talk about, too, that after the fact here, the strategy, how that might have changed the campaign or what the campaign messaging was going forward. Can you talk about that?
So the campaign messaging was already about strength, right? There was the imagery of Joe Biden just warranted that, because it was of a man that was feeble, of a man that didn't have the ferocity and the vigor that we expect from American presidents. So already Trump was portraying that through surviving the lawfare, and through bringing the country to a better place, right? And so not only did we go from aspirational qualities, but then there was, we see them then go pivot and reinforce on that strength, and also having a little fun. I mean, nothing was more funny than covering the McDonald's moment. You know, this is a campaign that understood the mission, but also understood the joke, right?
Absolutely.
And also with the garbage truck.
The
right?
garbage truck, it's McDonald's, it's his commentary, Salena, on so many things that I think helps him connect to Americans beyond just being the politician or the successful businessman that he is. Salena Zito, we got to leave it there. Some say you are the Trump whisperer, and we would love for you to stop back here on Newsmax. And thank you so much for talking with us today and sharing about that day and taking time on such a big day, too. We appreciate you.
Sadly, a hero lost his life that day, and we honor a hero. He gave his life to protect his family, and law enforcement failed him. We are reflecting on the life and legacy of Corey Compatore next.
Remembering a true American hero, people came out to honor Corey Compatore this weekend, the retired firefighter. He was killed during Trump's assassination attempt just 1 year ago.
His daughters, Kaylee and Allison, they set up a 50-mile motorcycle ride in his memory. They're alive today because their father, he shielded them when Thomas Matthew Crooks fired his gun into the crowd and was trying to kill President Trump.
Yep. President Trump not only honored his American hero's memory at the Republican National Convention, but also his October return in Butler. He did the same.
It's love like Corey's that is joining us to save our country, that's going to heal our country, and that is going to reunite our country as one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Corey Comparatori, a hero until his very last breath, Bob.
Protecting his family, think about that. He went out protecting his daughters, his wife. He went to the rally to have a good time and see his candidate of choice, and his life was taken by the killer, Thomas Matthew Crooks. Lidia, it's been an honor sitting next to you today, talking about this, bringing back a lot of memories here. And, the thing that stands out to me, obviously, it was crazy it happened. It's the investigation and how this 20-year-old got away with what he did.
And there were so many warning signs.
Yes.
There were so many warning signs. He's buying these chemicals. He's using these encrypted services, and it just goes on and on. He was sitting on that roof for over an hour.
And they knew he was there.
And the fact that you had the head of the FBI lie before Congress and say it was too slopey, and then that's why they couldn't put other agents there, and you had people saying, look at the guy on the roof.
Do something, he's on the roof, and it's because of such a catastrophic failure why people have a hard time swallowing this one, because it's really tough to believe.
Thank you so much for joining us for this special presentation of Butler at 1. Again, I'm Lidia Serrani.
And I'm Bob Brooks. You can catch the latest news here, as well as Newsmax.com.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.